Hi, everybody. This is Mrs. H, and I'm here with another edition of First Chapter Fridays. I'm here with this book called Almost Paradise. You could see the cover is pretty fun. There's a lot of colors and some interesting characters that might appear in the story. I was especially drawn to the pig that's on the cover. I think he's so cute. This story is about a 12-year-old girl named Ruby. She is going through a lot of changes in her life. Her mom's boyfriend actually held up a convenience store, and her mom was sent to jail as well for supposedly assisting in the robbery. So now Ruby and her pet pig, whose name is Bunny, which is really cute, a pig named Bunny, she's hiding out. She's all alone, and then she meets her aunt who she hasn't talked to and doesn't really know. And her aunt is also a nun. You can see on the cover there. So that it could be interesting for them. So there's a lot going on. She's had a lot of life changes and she really misses just being home and having a home and having people she can count on and trust. So this is written by Corabelle Schaffner, and we will get started so we can see we could see what happens to Ruby. Okay. As usual with First Chapter Friday, I'll read a little bit from the beginning of the story. And then if you would like to read the rest of the book and you're having trouble getting a copy, you can contact me and I will see what I can do to help. All right, here we go. I woke up alone in the back seat of the catfish's car. That was my mother's boyfriend. Don't get me started on the catfish. His real name was Carl, but I called him the catfish because that's exactly what he looked like. The distance between his eyes was enormous, and he had skinny lips and a pointy mustache. If I'd been older when he came around, I would have never allowed him into our lives. But honest, I had no entire clue how to get rid of him once he was wedged into our family. You may as well know Mother was no help at all, but don't hold that against her. She'd been real fragile since my father died, which was before I was born. I was still inside Mother at the time, and his shooting death actually made me come out. Anyway, Catfish wasn't in the car, and neither was my mother. The sun was all over me, and I was tangled up in the blanket staring up at the ceiling. Thumbtacks held up the saggy material. And at first I didn't even wonder where I was. I mean, I knew I was in the catfish's car, but to think outside the car would be like wondering where my planet was in the universe. I sat up to look for Mom. She was just outside sitting on an upturned log by a burning campfire, watching coffee perk into the glass knob on top of a metal pot. A lady holding a carton of milk sat on the log beside Mother. I thought she was the nurse from school with those blonde curls all around her face, but then I realized that I'd never seen her before. It still hadn't hit me how much we were not at home. Really, really not at home. I rested my cheek on the window and watched Mother watch the coffee brew. She sat real dainty with her feet and knees together. My mother was always a pretty person, even in the morning. Her hair was thick and wavy around her shoulders of her favorite dress, pale pink flowers, green leaves with an occasional bug. She'd replaced missing buttons at least 10 times. She kept herself real clean, too, which was something I could learn to stand. What's more, she was calm, being outside and all, so I knew Catfish was nearby. Mother is almost like those Agora something people on TV, the ones who can't go out of the house. But she's not mentally ill. There's no medical words ending in oids or icks for what she was. It's just that after my father died, she stayed inside so much that she forgot how to get along in the world. It all seemed like chaos to her, she said. The catfish got her to go outside more, but so what? We didn't need him. Speaking of outside, we were surrounded by those big RVs, tents, and pop-up campers all under the trees. It was organized somehow like an outdoor hotel, and then I started to think, where are we? I went to sleep at home and woke up in some kind of vagabond camp. Inside, the car was all packed up. That should have told me something. It was stuffed full of my toys and workbooks, clothes, and two horrible orange lamps. Looked like all our belongings, but that didn't upset me right away. I only got upset when I tried to get out of the car and put my foot down on the flimsy box. I knew what it was as soon as I felt the cardboard crush. My heart sank. My birthday cake. I'd stepped on my birthday cake, the one I bought for myself at the grocery store, the one my friend Bunny and I were supposed to share at home that afternoon for my 12th birthday. Mother could never celebrate my birthday because of father and all. But I couldn't figure out what my cake was doing there on the back seat floor of Catfish's car. I pulled up the box of my lap and lifted the busted top. Inside it said, P. Day Ubi. I cried big tears. I was no crybaby, but I was so surprised to wreck my own name that the tears just leaked out. Hap and Birth could fall by the wayside, but losing the R from Ruby, now that hurt. It hurt bad. I knew from that when somebody got a name change and was about to let it rip. So I knew then, just sitting and looking at the Ubi, that even though it was only my 12th birthday, my life was turning upside down. I opened the car door, swung my feet out, and walked over to Mother. She turned slowly from the fire to look at me. She was pleased to see me. I could always tell by her eyes and the warm light that she was there, and she saved for me alone. Where are we? I pulled the elastic waist of my pajamas and let it pop. Aren't I supposed to be in school today? The lady with the blonde curls could tell I was confused and needed to talk to my mother, so instead of talking, she politely turned away and stirred the fire with a long stick. Mother tilted her head and gestured to the woods and the campers all around us. She had this way of looking at ordinary things like she had never seen them before. I got right in front of Mother and touched her cheek. The fire warmed my back. How far are we from home, Mom? Do you know? She sighed. About. And how long did we drive last night? Do you remember? Were you awake? She glanced over at the car as if it might tell her. Then she said, The sun came up behind us. It was lovely. I almost woke you to see it. All night traveling in the car. We could have been in China for all I knew. Mother, I said slowly, where is the catfish taking us? She nodded peacefully, then touched her lips. Hollywood. It's in California. I could not believe my ears. The catfish probably thought he was going to get into movies or music. That was just like him, buying lottery tickets and gambling on any other fool thing that popped into his mind. He'd lay good money on whether the sun would come up and somehow he'd lose. The main problem with Catfish was he'd always been too good for his own life. He was always looking for a better place. And once he got going on one of his big ideas, it was near impossible to slow his motor down. Where is he now? I asked. Down there making friends, I suppose. She made a hand gesture like a fairy princess, spreading stardust, then poured us each a cup of coffee. That's the beginning of chapter 1 of Almost Paradise. I'm very intrigued by the characters, that just driving all night, trying to go to California, not really planning that. So it's interesting to me. So I'd like to see what happens. Again, this is Mrs. H. This has been First Chapter Friday. I hope you enjoyed this snippet of Almost Paradise.